Hello everyone, Ember here, and welcome back to a new video. In this one I'd like to take a look at several new deck ideas from the set Temporal Forces. So this is one of my favourite things to do when a new set releases, is to just look at all the different combos and ideas that you can get from a set. Now this video of course will not cover every single potential new deck. I've deliberately left several of them out in fact, because I think they're just a wee bit too obvious. And some of these can kind of range from deck ideas to more direct combos of cards as well. But basically, that's just a heads up, me saying you won't see every new deck idea in this video, but hopefully you'll be inspired at least in some regards, and you'll be able to come up with your own combos, basically. So kicking things off, we have Glamora box. So Glamora EX hasn't really made much of an impact on the TCG, despite the ability Dust Field being very annoying, and the single prize Glamora also being very annoying, admittedly on a coin flip. However, I do think some new buffs for this deck come in the form of Maximum Belt to do additional plus 50 damage, which I think is moderately relevant. And then, of course, the new stadium card, Dangerous Jungle, which increases poison damage by plus 2. So Glamora kind of just struggled with KOing these much bigger Pokemon, but thanks to Dangerous Jungle and Maximum Belt, you can effectively 2-hit KO all Pokemon in the game. So yeah, Glamora EX I definitely think will be worth revisiting once the set drops. Next up is we have Scizor. So Scizor EX and Matang is already like a pre-established well-known combo at this point, nothing new in that regard. However, most people have chosen not to talk about Buddy Poffin when bringing up Scizor, because most Scythers happen to have 80 or 90 HP. Now, thankfully, we do actually have a Scyther from the set 151 that has 70 HP, and also Free Retreat, coincidentally. So although it takes Grass Energy, so you'll never be attacking with this Scyther, it is going to be a fantastic option because it means we can actually use Buddy Poffin while also running 4 copies of a Pokemon that has Free Retreat. So yeah, fantastic, especially when comboed with Full Metal Lab to take minus 30, as well as stuff like Maximum Belt to do plus 50 damage. So yeah, I definitely think Scizor EX has some really solid potential, and I would definitely recommend picking up some Scythers from 151 if you or your friends intend to play Scizor EX, basically. Definitely looks like a really solid and fun rogue deck overall. Also worth mentioning is actually the single prize Scizor, because punishing Scizors is fantastic already, and then post-rotation with Maximum Belt, you're already doing quite a lot of damage at that point. So yeah, definitely a good combo and worth keeping an eye on. Next up is we have Bramble Gast. So I know we've been focusing on mainly well-known ideas up to this point, but I really just wanted to highlight Bramble Gast as a potential sort of like rogue / meme deck. It's not going to be fantastic, this is not broken by any means, but it will be a lot of fun. So Bramble Gast basically gets an additional 50 hit points for each price card your opponent's taken. So late game, this thing is going to have an awful lot of HP. Like when your opponent is down to 2 price cards, this will have 300 HP, which is fantastic. And you could also combo this with Hero's Cape to get an additional plus 100 HP, so that's a use for that spec, which is also really cool. Now, unfortunately, Cherim does rotate when we get this card, so you'll still be able to do that combo in Expanded, and of course GLC. But sadly, with Standard, you'll have to use other stuff, so Xatu might be your second best option, because Clairvoyant Sense can accelerate Psych Energy and act as a mini draw engine. However, you still need a Grass Energy minimum to use Powerful Needles, and at that point, you might as well use stuff like Mirage Gate, potentially. So, yeah, I do think Mirage Gate is probably your safest bet, sadly, so more of a Lost Zone deck, potentially. But still, a very fun card, and one that I'm definitely looking forward to experimenting with, basically. So yeah, pretty fun decks overall. Next up is we have Incinerar. So I wanted to highlight Incinerar in this video, not because it's like a crazy new idea, and I'm sure a lot of people have looked at this card and already figured out a proper way to build the deck, but basically I wanted this segment to be more of a cautious tale warning kind of thing, and basically say to people, just like, don't get caught up in too many different tech options. Like, in theory, this card is hyper efficient. The ability means that this attack can be used for 1 or 2 energy potentially, which sounds absolutely fantastic on paper, but you do have to be careful that it's still a stage 2, and that's still going to be clunky in some regards. Like, we have Colorless Experiment and Arven to help find rare candies and such, so stage 2 decks are at least way more consistent than they used to be. Charizard is proof of that. However, Incineroar will still struggle a little bit without inbuilt energy acceleration. We do have Magma Basin, thankfully, and we have some rather efficient single price attackers like Chi-Yu and Moltres to take advantage of. But, just be careful with, like, clunking up the deck with Rallicanth and stuff. I do think, like, one copy of Rallicanth is really good, especially if you're playing the Litten from Silver Tempest. So if your opponent just swings into you for 200 damage or something, you can just want to kill them with Reprisal. Very funny. And that definitely will be an option for this deck. But, just bear in mind that you're a stage 2 deck, so be careful with playing clunky techs. This Rabombi, for example, sounds really good on paper. You just use Business Wages for 30 damage, you finish them off with Blaze Bomb, take 4 prize cards. Sounds fantastic. But that's a stage 1 line that's not really adding any draw power to the deck. It does have free retreat, which is nice. But again, it's a stage 1 line that you've got to set up on top of your stage 2 line. Plus, you're not ramping energy. It can get sketched pretty quickly. My main point is just be careful, basically, when trying out these stage 2 EXs. And don't be put off if your initial build isn't working, because it took me a while to get Charizard right online. But yeah, Incinerar, definitely a fun card to try out, and I'm definitely looking forward to experimenting with it on the ladder. Next up is we have Bronzong Salvatore, another combo that's kind of been talked about already a bit. But I did want to mention the fact that this could be a way of reviving Gardevoir a bit post-rotation. Does seem like a decent combo in the sense to use Bronzong in the earlier game, because Gardevoir is already a really slow deck anyway in most regards. So you just have extra time in order to power up a different attacker, maybe Gorgal EX itself. But Salvatore basically means that turn 1 going second, you can search your deck for Bronzong and evolve it. And then you can use Evolution Jammer, which only does 30 damage, but your opponent can't play any Pokemon from their hand to evolve their Pokemon during their next turn. So Charizard can't do anything, which is fantastic because Charizard looks to be one of the best decks post-rotation. And Charizard also won't have Entei anymore to rely on, so they won't be able to just, power up an Entei in 2 turns and then kill your Bronzongs. They won't be able to do that, so yeah, this could definitely be a massive pain for most decks. There is some that it won't be able to bypass. Lost Zone is a very obvious example. Giratina V-Star with Arceus and stuff, if that's going to be a deck post-rotation. Giratina V can just shred their way through your Bronzongs, which kind of sucks. So there is different things like that to bear in mind. This won't counter every single deck. But if we do end up in a format which is largely dominated by these evolved powerful Pokemon, I mean, we don't even know what Ogerpon EX does yet, depending on when this video goes up. So, that could be really broken. We just don't know. So Evolution Jammer, I think, definitely worth considering. So yeah, definitely worth bearing that in mind. Next up, though, is we have Bog of Unfezant, which is going to be quite the meme deck to try out. I don't think this will be a very good deck, but it'll be very, very fun. So Pidove has the very interesting ability Emergency Evolution, which says if that Pokemon has 30 HP or less remaining, you can search your deck for an Unfezant, so not just from your hand, from your deck, for an Unfezant or Unfezant EX. Do bear in mind we don't have an Unfezant EX just yet, so we're just assuming that there will be one revealed at some point, and you can evolve it. So yeah, and the way we can guarantee the damage on Pidove without our opponent, of course, just carrying it outright is with Gapejaw Bog. Now, that is a stadium, so finding stadiums can be pretty tricky in the game, funny enough, without trekking shoes and stuff, so this might have to be a sort of weird turbo deck in a way. But Gapejaw Bog will just mean that Pidoves can go down to the magical HP of 30, then we can search our deck for an Unfezant and evolve it. And in terms of paying for the energy cost for either Hurricane Wing on this Unfezant on the bottom left corner, or this new Unfezant that's coming around in Temporal Forces, we'll be able to use either double Turbo Energy, which will reduce the damage by 20, but still usable, or we can use Neo Upper Energy to pay for the attack cost. And you may even want to use Reverse Energy, so you can use Boundless Power or something, but that's just an idea. You could even use Xatu if you wanted to power these guys up, because the deck should be pretty consistent anyway, as soon as you find Gapejaw Bogs. But yeah, seems like a very fun deck overall to try out. Looking forward to trying this one out. I don't think it'll be broken, of course, but definitely a bit of fun to mess around with. Next up, though, is we have Valiant God. So I'm going to be very crystal clear on this. I don't think this is a way to make Gardevoir broken post-rotation. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Gardevoir is saved, keep all your Gardevoirs if you're relying on selling them and all the rest of it, but this is at least an option for Gardevoir to do post-rotation things. And as someone who's really enjoyed playing Gardevoir recently, and I know a lot of people are looking for ways to play it post-rotation, this could be an option, something worth experimenting with. So the main thing about Gardevoir is it loses its main great single prize attacker in the form of Gardevoir. Now, yeah, single prize Gardevoir, I should say. But it does have Screamtail, and I like Screamtail as a Pokemon, but I thought it'd be fun to try out a future one. So Cryptomaniac's Deciphering, or Codebreaker's Deciphering as it's actually known as, search your deck for any 2 cards and put them on top of your deck. Now that's a really good combo with Curlia anyhow, to discard 1 and then draw those 2 cards, so that's fantastic. Great synergy with Godvor's ability as well. But it does mean that Iron Valiant can swing for 200 damage for 3 Psych Energy, which really isn't that bad, especially not considering you have like Future Booster Capsule and you're already playing Arven and such to find them. So yeah, I definitely think there's some solid potential here. You could even play like one of Professor Tura's scenario or something to lift a Luminion if you're trying to find your other supporters in the early game. So yeah, I definitely think this is worth experimenting with. Is it going to be broken? Probably not, but you know, it's a bit of fun. It's an idea. It's something to try out. Next up, we have to talk about Scalian again, because sadly he was removed from Paldean Fates. I don't know why. He definitely should have been in the set. Would have made it at least a bit more interesting. But we do have some new cards that we can talk about. Eri, which allows us to reveal our opponent's hand and discard 2 items there, which is already comboing quite nicely with Two-Faced Crash, which will discard a random card anyway. Then we also have Hero's Cape, just to buff your HP by plus 100, because 260 on a stage 1 is a bit sad, really. We do want to be having more than that. I know Rogue Trio Terra type has 250, which is abysmal, but still 260 is pretty low, so having the Hero's Cape will definitely help quite a bit. But yeah, Scalian, definitely going to be a lot of fun with Eri and Crushing Hammers. Also, lastly, we have Gorgal EX to talk about again. This one I don't think is in Temporal Forces. I remember hearing somewhere that there's like too many EXs in that set already, so this will get removed and be a box promo or saved for Scarlet Violet set number 6 or something wild. So yeah, Gorgal being delayed again, unfortunately, but hopefully it comes out around the same time in a box. But yeah, a very, very tanky Pokemon, especially with Hero's Cape, giving this thing 440 HP, which is very, very scary. And 440 HP, doing 170 damage, so 2-hit killing anything. Even 150 is still really good if you end up using Double Turbo. And taking 60 less damage from attacks. That's insane, really. So I think this is definitely worth experimenting with. Even if it ends up being a bit too clunky to make work in the end, I definitely think Gorgal EX is worth at least experimenting with and trying out. But yeah, thanks for watching. It's been a very different kind of video to the ones I'd usually do, so let me know what you thought down below. You know, did it work for you or not? And yeah, thank you for watching.